Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Q&A with Garnet. I would like to thank everyone who participated in the first episode. I really enjoyed answering your questions. So without further ado, let's jump into the questions for this episode. So the first question comes from Dante McNeely, and he asks, how do you apply scales to chord progressions? So the way that you apply scales to chord progressions is having the understanding that chords come from scales. Okay, so let's start with the C major scale since that's the easiest. So C major has C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So what you do is you take every other note in that scale, like this. So it looks like there's a really cool pattern here. So in doing this, you can see the different chords. You can see C major, you can see E minor, you can see G major, you can see B diminished, you can see D minor, and you can see F major. A simpler way of doing that is just going like this. Now, this concept works over any type of chord. So let's say, for example, I want to play a D minor 7 chord, something like that. Now, a couple things come into play here. You have to know your scales for this to make sense. So I have D minor 7. Now, because I've practiced my scales, I know where this chord can end up. So, for example, D minor 7 is in C major. It's also in F major, right? Right there. So now it's a matter of knowing what scale you want to use or what mode you want to use. A mode is pretty much a scale that's inside of a scale. For example, if I start with C major, that's the scale. Now, if I want to play that D minor, it's inside the C major scale, and that's a mode, and the name of that mode is called Dorian. So let's say that the chord that I want to create is this D minor 9 chord, and I want to use that Dorian mode. Now this sounds really, really basic and fundamental. So now what I do is I start to create lines from it. So I can start doing thirds. We do triads. Regarding the rhythm, 7th chords. I can do sus chords. But the thing is that I'm using that all those notes that are in that scalar mode. Now let's say I want to try a different mode. Let's say I want to try natural minor or the Aeolian mode. So technically, I'm also thinking that I'm in the key of F. So now let's try that same chord. So pretty much what I did was I took the scale, I took the chord out of it, then I started to build my lines around the chord. There's also a book that I found to be really helpful in learning chords and learning the scales and modes and stuff, and it's called The Keyboard Grimoire. I've had that book for many years, and I still go back to it till this day. To create some you know different uh, combinations of chords, and even to refresh my memory on some things too. So I think that's a good book for you to pick up. And the important thing with that book is that you see the numbers, but it's also important to put the sound with the numbers. You just don't want it to be mechanical. You want to be able to put a sound to whatever numbers you're playing, whatever mode or scale you're playing. The next question is from Princessa on Instagram, and she asks, I'm not good in music theory. I've been trying books. Do you have any suggestions? I have a few suggestions. There are a couple of books that I really, really like. Well, not a couple, but there are a lot of books that I like. And I'll share some with you. So there's a book called Tonal Harmony. I had this book when I was in college, and they probably have some more editions, some more current editions than the one that I have now. I found that book to be really helpful. There was another book called Ear Training Solfege Notation. That's another good book in terms of learning theory. Because I did classical and I also did jazz, like I also have jazz theory books as well, so I have the best of both worlds. Um, so one book that I have is called the Jazz Theory book by Mark Levine. That's a really good book. Um, Another book that I have is called Modern Jazz Piano by Brian Waite. That's a good book. Um, let's see. What's the name of that book? There's also a book by Bill Dobbins called Jazz Piano Harmony. I go back to that book all the time. I get some great ideas from them. And also, I use that as a refresher as well. Our next question is from J. Fred Robinson on Instagram, and he asks, what is the best advice for someone transitioning from keyboard to organ? The best advice that I can give in terms of transitioning from keyboard to organ is having the understanding that keyboard and the organ are two completely different instruments. So with that in mind, you can't approach them the same way. So I started off playing piano, and when I play the piano, I can create different texture by how hard or how soft I play the keys. When I started playing the organ, I tried to approach the organ like a piano, not realizing the nuances of playing the organ. So if I were to play the organ, no matter how hard I press the keys, I'm still going to get that one consistent sound. So with that being known, I had to switch my mind from piano mode to organ mode, if that makes any sense. I also had to learn the drawbars. It took me a while to understand what the drawbars represented, and the drawbars represent the overtone series. So I don't have an organ here, but I know that there are resources online that can walk you through what the overtone series is and what each drawbar represents. Another thing about the organ that's different than the piano is that on the organ you can be a little bit sloppy because the notes blend together really well. So if I would play something like this on the piano, you can hear the two distinct notes. On an organ, you can do that, but the notes will blend in with one another. That's what I find. So I find that approaching the piano and approaching the organ, they have to be two separate things. They have the black and the white keys and stuff, but you gotta approach them differently. Oh, and let me not forget, learning the pedals. Learning the pedals is really important for playing the organ. I find that it's really important. So it's like you're doing three different things at the same time. Left hand, right hand, and then your foot. And then you want to do the drawbar thing, and then Leslie and all that stuff. So you have to approach the organ as a completely different instrument than the piano. Also, just be patient with the transition. It's not going to happen overnight. Just be patient. and just take your time to understand every nuance of that instrument. So we have another question from Jayford Robinson, and he asks, what is your best approach for someone who's starting to learn the key of D? That's my weakest key besides G. I find that the best way to learn a key that you're uncomfortable in is just to submerge yourself in it and make your mistakes. One thing that I continue to do is I stay in one key for the day. So, for example, if I'm playing in the key of D, I'm going to play everything I know in the key of D. And I have to be conscious that I'm in the key of D, because sometimes I can transition into another key and stay there for a while because it's comfortable. But I have to remember that I'm in the key of D. So I have to play the scales, play all my chords, all my voicings, everything that I know, I'll play it in the key of D. So if I know this run in the key of E flat, I'm going to learn it in the key of D. So it's a matter of just immersing yourself in that key for the whole day. No matter what you know, put it in there. It's going to be uncomfortable, but it's best to feel uncomfortable and have progress than just to be in the key that you're comfortable in and not grow. Another thing to also consider is that wherever you're playing in your other keys that are strong, it should sound just as strong in the key that you're uncomfortable in. So if you're comfortable in the key of E flat, you should be aiming to be comfortable in the key of D, playing those same chords. So the integrity of those chords need to be the same. Like that's the E flat major 9. Those chords should still have the same amount of power and weight. So you definitely have to use your ears and listen into how the chords sound and how they feel. So I just say just work on one key per day. And when you work on one key per day, you'll start to see the difference after a while. Another thing I like to do is I like to play in keys that I'm uncomfortable in the dark. So it forces me to really listen, and it also forces me to remember what the chord feels like under my fingers, or what the lines feel like under my fingers. So you're enhancing your hearing and your sense of touch. Our final question is from Dawsey from Instagram, and he says, brother, I hate the way I sound on keys. What's a good way to change my style of sound? I feel that the best way to change your sound and style is to listen to different types of music. So whatever you're listening to, put that to the side for a while and go searching. There's a lot of music out there, on YouTube, Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal. You have to just go out and just search for music. Sometimes you might have to listen to something that's current. Sometimes you might have to go back in time and find something that you like. The key thing is to find something that you like, that grabs a hold of you emotionally. So sometimes I'll go on a binge. Like I'll listen to Chick Corea for a while, and then I'll settle with him, and then I just start working on all his all that stuff, and then I get bored with it. Then I just start to search for something else, and sometimes it might not even be in the same genre. Sometimes it'll be classical or rock or something. But the key thing is that you're going out and you're searching and you're broadening your horizon. That's really, really important, because you want to stay creative. You also want to improve, and you also want to be different. So you have to listen to different types of music, find something that you like. Another thing you can do is go out and listen to live music because that also helps. When you go out and listen to live music, or you're not like trying to analyze it, you're just taking in the moment. And what happens is when you take in the moment, you don't want to let that moment go, especially if it was a really, really good show. So you want to hold on to that moment and you want to try and recreate it. So that also helps with inspiration. Another way that you can change your style and sound is just hanging out with other musicians and just picking their brain and um, find out what makes them tick. You know, iron sharpens iron. So sometimes I'll hear a friend of mine play something and I'm like, oh man, that sounds really cool. And I'll take that and then I'll try and make it my own. You know, like it's good to be influenced, but you don't want to be a copycat. Another thing to consider is to embrace the way that you sound. We all get to this point where it's like, man, I don't like the way that I sound. I sound horrible. Yeah. But you sound like you, and you want to improve and stuff, and that's great. You know, but don't beat yourself up because you don't like the way you sound, because there's always somebody out there that appreciates the sound that you bring to the table. Remember that this is an endless journey. We're always going to be evolving. We're always going to be learning something musically. We're always going to be adding on something, and we'll always revisit something that we worked on many years ago. That's just a part of the journey, man. So just embrace your sound. Listen to different types of music. Go out and listen to live music. Hang out with other musicians, and just keep an open ear for anything and everything, because inspiration can come from anywhere. So I'd like to thank all the people who participated in this episode of Q&A with Garnet. I really love answering your questions. I really love sharing what I know, and I want to help other people get to the next level. And I feel like I'm learning a lot from you all as well. So please feel free to inbox me questions. You know, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. If you like the content of these videos, please hit the subscribe button and hit the notification button so you know whenever I put out a new video. Share this video with your friends, repost it, and thank you so much for watching.